this video is to go with Skirkin Chapter 12, calculating your chi-square value. I'm using the same data as I did in the previous video where I explained how to calculate your expected frequencies, which the original data is on page 401 of your textbook. Please turn to page 414 because we're going to go through the steps they have in there on how to calculate chi-square. Notice your columns are headed to F subscript O, which is your observed frequency, and then to the right of that you have your expected frequency, F subscript E, and then you have the observed frequency minus the expected frequency, and then the observed frequency minus the expected frequency squared, and then the far right column is your observed frequency minus your frequency expected or expected frequency squared over your expected frequency. Okay, I like to work left to right, the columns, and from then the top down. So that way I fill in each column as I work across. So notice I have the A, the B, the C, the D labeled the same as last time, same as your tables. So for the observed frequency, it's A is 13, and then the B on your observed frequency is 2, and the C on your observed frequency is 5, and the D on your observed frequency is 20. I keep them labeled because they have to match up when you put them in a table, when you calculate your formula. So then for your expected frequencies, A was working down from the top, 6.75. Your expected frequencies for B, 8.25. Your expected frequencies for C, 11.25. Your expected frequencies for your D section is 13.75. Okay, then you work your way across here. So your observed frequencies minus your expected frequencies, all that is a 13 minus the 6.75 equals 6.25. And then working down, your observed frequency 2 minus the expected frequency 8.25 equals negative 6.25, working down. And then across the row, your observed frequency 5 minus your expected frequency 11.25 equals negative 6.25. And then your observed frequency 20 minus your expected frequency 13.75 equals 6.25. Now for the next column, what it is all it's doing is squaring your answer from your previous one. Because what it's saying is your observed frequency minus your expected frequency squared. So all it's doing is squaring your previous answer. So 6.25 times 6.25 equals 39.06. And now negative 6.25, if you're not using it with your calculator, it will automatically do that to a positive. Because remember, when you multiply negative by negative, it becomes a positive number. So negative 6.25 squared, or multiplied by itself, equals 39.06. Again, negative 6.25 times itself, negative 6.25 equals a positive 39.06. And again, it's the same number, 6.25 squared equals 39.06. That's how you figure out your observed frequency minus your expected frequency squared. Now for the next one, what you're taking is you're taking the answer, because notice it's what we just figured out, the observed frequency minus the expected frequency squared is on top with the expected frequency on bottom. Again, the reason why I work across in rows and top to bottom, because you have to look across the row to figure this out, because it's per row. Your top number is 39.06, comes from that one across the row, and that's above your expected frequency for this row, which is 6.75. That's where I came up with the 6.75 there. So then 39.06 divided by 6.75 equals 5.78. Now we work our way down. So again, the top number was from the previous column. That's your observed frequency minus your expected frequency squared is 39.06 over your expected frequency for this row, which is 8.25. So 39.06 divided by 8.25 equals 4.73. Now working our way down, it's for this row, 39.06, that goes up here, and that's divided by 11.25, which go across the row, that's our expected frequency. 11.25, so 39.06 divided by 11.25 equals 3.47. Now our last one here is, again, the 39.06, comes from there, and then it's 13.75, that's our expected frequency for the row, comes from there. So 39.06 divided by 13.75 equals 2.84. And all this is doing is you're summing up the summation of this column. So summation, the observed frequency minus the expected frequency squared over expected or divided by expected frequency equals 16.82. Notice that summation for the column, that's the same as our chi-squared. Chi-squared is the italicized lowercase x with the upper subscript 2. So that chi-square equals summation of, it's this column, notice it's the same. That's our chi-square, 16.82. Now, with the previous video we explained how to do degrees of freedom. We'll just, boom, quickly do it again. It's the number of rows minus 1 and number of columns minus 2. The number of rows, there's 2 rows, support and opposes. 2 minus 1 times the number of columns, there's 4 and against, that's 2 minus 1. So 2, take 1 from equals 1, 2 minus 1 equals 1, so 1 times 1 equals 1. Our degrees of freedom are 1. So look in your book, the table 12.7, page 409. Your degrees of freedom, you first went down, degrees of freedom, working your way across, you go to the chi-square critical value of 0.05. Remember, for us with the behavioral health field counseling, we reject the null hypothesis at the 0.05 level. So the chi-critical, or the x-squared critical for this is, your chi-square critical is 3.84. So our number has to be greater significance or bigger, you might as well say a larger number, than 3.84. Or the same, so it's be 3.84 or larger to be able to reject the null, which of course we can. We have 16.82. So work your way across the chart, ding ding, to the right. You have your chi-square critical for the level of 0.01 equals 6.64. Ooh, our number is still larger than that. Cool, to 16.82. So for the last one on the table, which your chi-square critical is 0.001 equals 10.83, and again, 16.82 is greater significance than the 10.83, so our P is less than 0.01. So we do reject the null hypotheses, and our P is less than 0.001. So this is how you calculate the chi-square value in your textbook.